You're listening to Second Cut. This is the podcast where we talk about topics in film history, criticism, theory, etc. I'm Jacob, and I'm the one who owns a gun.
I'm Sam. I'm the one who wishes that politicians still had principles these days.
And Kieran, I'm the one with the internet quality like from the Wild West.
Woo, woo. Ah,
Okay, I'm just the floating. Then
Oh, he cut out again.
yeah, you're definitely floating. Whatever however that sentence ended, you're floating.
yeah, let
We
me
all
try.
float down here.
See if I can set it up on my phone and see how that works.
Yeah.
Actually,
well,
no.
in the last week, we had some very shocking news. Kieran gave a film a 10, but also tragically, Robert Redford passed, and so we were missing last week, and we had a topic picked out for this upcoming week, but once that happened, we went a different direction. So
Yeah, this definitely takes precedence. We've lost a lot of kind of icons of Hollywood this year already. Think of Gene Hackman and David Lynch and everyone else. But yeah, this definitely is another biggie. I mean, just one of the last kind of great kind of movie stars. From a bygone era essentially, and all the work he did with Sundance Film Festival and as a director as well as a movie star. So yeah, big loss.
yes, I can't tell. Kieran, are you still here?
I am. I'm trying not to talk too much so I don't cut. Chime
Gotcha.
in.
Well, if Kieran were with us, I'm sure he would agree. Oh, wait, he is. And he does. Kieran, do you have any quick thoughts on Robert Redford?
I don't know too much about Redford. Do an essay on Sundance Festival in my MA, so the whole point was, is it actually supporting American independent film?
Yeah.
And by the end of it, it's like, well, kind of, you're having to work with like major studio thing, which is why kind of to the 2018, 19 and stuff, you got sponsored for like Netflix. Hey, the independent thing isn't quite as much there. And they did have sort of, a couple of months into lockdown, so give it 5. But they did do like a Sundance Hong Kong for like 1, maybe 2 days, and they had features and like a shorts competition about the same amount, and 2 Hong Kong shorts and no feature films from the country they were in. So if they're all about supporting like a national homegrown thing, maybe for America, but you're just another country at this point. So there was some weird stuff on that, but obviously Redford kind of getting about 5,000 acres of land and calling it Sundance after Sun there. I looked through my assignment, or started to look through my assignment days that in a book somewhere, Sidney Pollock, who 29, suggested that, and I quote, proceedings should be moved from Salt Lake City, which would be more economical and less affected by adverse weather conditions. He also ski season, a time when many Hollywood executives take their vacations. So the whole idea of it being kind of completely independent, it's like literally putting it at a time when like Hollywood executives wouldn't be working as much. Funding. At the same time, though, it did sort of in they workshop, because they got a workshop started in 1990, which is where quite a lot before it being filmed. And in '98, they released Smoke Signals, supportive of American to receive a worldwide release in 1998. So they have done some good LinkedIn and stuff like that. There's lots of stuff about Robert Redford, our founder and stuff in Pat. His filming career, is one thing. I think Sundance, as much also one of the biggest festivals in the world. There are some films that have. If you get a world first screening there, you're doing pretty well. I think Saw screening at Sundance, if nothing else. So it does do some big things, and to thank for it in spirit, if not in practice, now that it's corporatized.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's. It says a lot that a festival, essentially an indie festival, has had a large enough impacts in that there's kind of a way to describe the kind of film you get there, like a Sundance film, stereotyped as being something like a bit kind of rebellious in spirit and possibly a bit challenging, but also probably got a sense of humor to it. It's probably a bit bittersweet, and kind of dark, darkly O'Reilly, kind of funny, like just dig into like a subject that isn't quite mainstream enough. So I think it very much embodied that kind of spirit of a lot of the characters he kind of plays, that are kind of a bit off the mainstream, but kind of with their kind of strong morals and ideals, driving them.
Well, the great thing about Redford is he's a figure from the new Hollywood. The point where the Hollywood industry started to see changes in like what you could show on screen and how genres are presented, the way society is presented, because of the Hays Code, all that junk. So as we're transitioning into the 70s, like film is changing, and what Redford kind of represents is the way that a classical, star actor can continue to persist in the environment that is, it's been built on, like people in the industry at this point have been going to film school, grown up watching movies. They're going to Stella Adler and all these different acting coaches and schools, and Redford really fits the mold of like the classical 30s 40s Hollywood star, but here he is in the 70s, and it's a very subversive time, but he's still able to put that American golden boy, so to speak, face to rising counterculture, and just changes both in the industry and at least in American society. Because his first movie comes out and black people have only been allowed to vote for 4 years.
Yeah. It's incredible thing to look back on, and so often it's like the way he looks, it's almost like if he wasn't as good as he was, he might be dismissed as just a hunk, just a just a pretty face with nothing going on below the surface. But he was of such a smart, like a sharp, smart kind of performer, and got to perform so many different kinds of roles over like his long career. I mean, the first obituary I read from this week was Peter Bradshaw's from The Guardian. And I'll be honest, I think he probably lays on a bit thick about it, the amount of time he talks about how he looks and kind of, just what magnetic screen presence is. But I just had to pick out this line about which he kind of summed up in his like introduction to it, and he said, neatly trimmed and shaved, Robert Redford was just outrageously handsome, incandescently handsome. He was handsomeness on legs. His photograph was in the dictionary next to the word handsome.
What's the opposite of a roast? That's what that was.
Yeah, basically. Yeah.
Stew, I think.
Yeah.
Compliment stew.
Yeah. But it did kind of add to his kind of performances, I suppose. So often he's like the poster child, for a particular movement or a particular group, and or ideology, and it kind of, it's almost like the way he looks kind of gets him in the door. People listen to him, because he's that magnetic, and he radiates out the screen, and obviously does a lot of interesting things with that kind of screen time.
Yeah, and Kieran, you're for whatever Sundance is now, also in the late 70s, early 80s. I mean, even at that point, the independent scene of film in America is, I mean, it's not huge. Not that it's not existent, but I mean, it's not the era where you have to play your movie in a theater owned by a larger movie place, but the early 80s, you start seeing the reaction against auteur cinema, and Heaven's Gate comes out and loses tons of money, and blockbusters start to become more of a thing too. So, contextual to that point in time, like what he was doing was something that the industry was, not necessarily wanting to elevate.
Yeah.
Yeah, but definitely, I would like to read what you wrote about how it sucks now, because that's a bummer.
I can't even remember. I've only very quickly skimmed it. I can't, or part of it. I can't even remember what I actually concluded. I just wanted a couple of things to mention about it. I remember just the general points. I just can't remember what my final conclusion was for it.
Well, what he frames starting Sundance as was that there was no independent, cinema. Really, I mean, United Artists is the only thing I personally know of that was like looking for and distributing independent films. And obviously in the 1980s, they went bankrupt because of Heaven's Gate. So,
yeah, I mean, I'm looking at my concluding paragraph, and I think my concluding paragraph was that, actually the initial paragraph was the point that on February 1st, 2020, the head of the festival was being replaced by Tabitha Jackson, who had previously worked for Channel 4 and Film 4, which is kind of pretty much sort of the British independent kind of, like, one of the bigger independent things. We don't have many film kind of production companies in the UK. Normally what happens is we have kind of offshoots of the US ones, or even if we have kind of UK property, it's US money filtered in. So the small ones you get are kind of the kind of national ones, sort of Film Cymru, the Irish one, Irish Film Board and stuff like that. And then in England you've got things like BFI, you've got BBC, and kind of Channel 4, Film 4 is about it. So they're kind of the bigger ones, but one of the independent, they're still pretty much independent. And the whole idea of that was essentially we're going to make films so that we can shove them on TV. So they've got to kind of be cheap. So it's not quite a sort of old school Paramount movie of the week kind of thing, but in tone. So she was coming in, and I think my concluding paragraph is that it may get marred and fall off the tracks every now and then. They still try. But it's just kind of, is it actually possible to make it completely independent support, completely independent, almost like a Dogma 95 sort of filmmaking sort of channel from that. Was my concluding remarks on Sundance, at least.
I've just found this list on the Sundance Institute's website. 10 directors who launched their careers with Sundance Film Festival shorts. So their first shorts premiered at Sundance. So you've got Todd Haynes, Jason Reitman, the Duplass brothers, Taika Waititi, Sterling Harjo, Dee Reese, Destin Daniel Cretton, Lake Bell, and Ronaldo Marcus Green. Some pretty big names there, and getting that kind of that leg up, that prominent kind of introduction to the world, to audiences, is pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he made movies over, I don't remember exactly how many decades. A lot of them, even into the late 2010s.
Acting roles, I'm just looking at Wiki now. The first thing he was in was a film called Tall Story, uncredited, and that was 1960. And his final film was
60s to 10s, I want it. So.
Well, his final film was actually Omniboat, a fast boat Fantasia, as a voice role, and that was in 2020.
Oh, right, okay. So he did
So
make it to
technically
20s.
has gone into the
Yeah.
into a
Well,
seventh decade.
if you include all
Wow.
TV, we're going from the 50s to this year. He was in a TV season premiere apparently. So,
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah, I mean, just a prolific amount of work, and like without making a ton of just, Coppola had a lot of crap in the 80s. And we're not going to really focus in on the 80s and 90s and 2000s for Redford, but like,
Yeah.
he didn't sell out at a certain point. He didn't make Pacifier.
No, and even when he was having less kind of starring roles, he was still kept cropping up in like really interesting kind of supporting character kind of roles, into the 90s and 2000s. But also around that time, he obviously transitioned into directing as well. And this week, as well as kind of focus films and a couple of others, I ended up watching Ordinary People for the first time, which I'd never got to up to this point, and that's an incredible piece of work, especially considering it's his directorial debut as well, and ended up getting him, directorial debut got the best picture and best director Oscar double for him, which is pretty damn impressive.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's okay.
Yes.
But I mean, he also kind of shows that like actors could transition to that behind the camera. He's a proof of concept.
Yeah. I don't know much about his kind of directing style versus kind of performing style, but I would imagine I'd have to guess that he's probably very much an actor's director, very much workshopping with them, and probably long detailed conversations, as if they're like a theatre troupe or something, just about motivation and where the characters are at that point and what's driving them. And I'm sure they really got to the weeds of those, but to great effects. I mean, the performances in Ordinary People are incredible and really kind of rich and kind of raw, and just a very natural feeling. So I'm sure his directing style definitely led to that.
Yeah, probably not as weird a directing style as Clint Eastwood, though, according to the many stories.
Yeah.
Of is treating people like horses not to startle them. It's like, are we ready? Are we ready?
That's
Right,
racist too.
Off you go.
Yeah.
And it's like, I think we got that one. We can go for another one. It's just like, what?
Yeah. Fairness doesn't do more than a couple of takes, does he, Eastwood? Just keeps things moving.
Yeah.
I think we got that one. Next one.
Well, Redford's first film role. I wish we had. I mean, there's a reason we didn't do it. He has a ton of movies, but I mean, his first one was he was in a Neil Simon play on Broadway, and then started the movie adaptation, and that's kind of where he broke through. Not like his first, but his first. Oh, hey, this is a guy doing a rom-com that was a Broadway production. Yeah. But then he really launched into stardom with Kieran. If he were with us right now, he would show us that he physically owns the script of this movie. Kieran, what'd you watch?
Yeah, I mean, theoretically, I can kind of jump back in and kind of just hold it up to the screen.
Ooh.
And then pause.
There you go. Right, you've done that. Don't push your luck.
I was going to say, this is the one jump scare of the day that I'm allowed, and then I just go back into hiding again. Yeah, interestingly enough, it's not the kind of original script. It's the shooting script because it's got cut to, and things like that. Which, if you're writing a screenplay out, you do not do, because that is the role of the director to decide when you cut to things, and the editor and cut to things. So this is kind of the script as it appears on the screen rather than as it was written. But it's got some nice photographs in the middle of kind of some behind the scenes thing. There's one with sort of most of the stars kind of lying down and laughing on the ground sort of thing and stuff like that, and the shooting out there. But anyway, yeah, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, written by William Goldman. And interestingly enough, I made the joke when I was rewatching this, because I had seen it. You know when you're like, I know I've seen it, but I can't actually remember sitting down to watch a film because it's been that long ago, And I'm fairly sure I must have seen it. Like, it's one of those ones that you find somebody watching, like, your grandparents, you go around the house and it's on TV, and it's always at the river jump section every single time. Like, it just turns on, it's like, oh, we've got the river jump from Butch Cassidy. Okay, next. So watching again was interesting, and I think I messaged you guys sort of a couple of days ago, going, we need to discuss why there was so many films around this time that are like woman falls in love with inherently dangerous guy that are probably set near the deep south, because you got this, you got Bonnie and Clyde, and you got like Badlands a few years after, and I'm fairly sure there must have been another few around.
Hey,
Hilarious.
Badlands is not the deep south, all right? It's the north.
Whereabouts is Badlands set? Maybe it's just Sissy SpaceX accent that I'm thinking of that's sort of a more southern drawl.
By the way, my mom says Barefoot in the Park is her favorite Redford. That's the one I was talking about, the Neil Simon guy. So
fair enough.
there you
go. But all of these films come around the same time, and just looking at some anecdotes for Butch Cassidy, when they're casting around for people, the role of Sundance was initially offered to Jack Lemmon, who had produced. It was in Cool Hand Luke, starring Paul Newman, who would play Butch Cassidy in the film. Lemmon turned it down, apparently because he didn't like riding horses that much. And he also thought he'd kind of done similar aspects of the character in other things as well. But the interesting thing is that apparently Steve McQueen and Warren Beatty were also offered it. And Beatty claimed that the film was too similar to Bonnie and Clyde. So I'm like, I'm not completely losing it then. It's like, this is a thing which is going on.
The difference between this and Bonnie and Clyde is this one is much funnier. And
Bonnie and Clyde is just kind of depressingly dark, kind of as it should be. And
I'll admit that I see Bonnie and Clyde. I admit, obviously, it's a very, very important, influential film, but I do find it a bit of a struggle to sit through. It's not an easy watch for me, really. It's
no.
Whereas Butch and Sundance is a riot. It's great.
Yeah. Well, and then Badlands is just even slower. So
yeah. Well, I haven't seen many Terrence Malick films, but I'm fairly sure Badlands is probably his speediest film ever made.
Probably, yeah.
It's possible.
So yeah, Butch Cassidy, Sundance Kid, based off actual people to the most part. And apparently William Goldman, who ended up writing like a load of really weird things that you just don't realize he'd done. So he did Stepford Wives, which, if anybody wants to go onto the Second Cut Substack, I have an essay on the revival of the Stepford Wives thing for its 50th anniversary. So that is 50 years old this year. Did All the President's Men and Marathon Man, again, Butch Cassidy, which is kind of the stuff he's known for. And then Princess Bride. He also did Magic and Heat, the original Heat. But then you go, some of the other stuff are just like, you forget that he did them. So he did Misery. He did like a run of Stephen King movies, this writer. So he did Misery, obviously very well regarded. Memoirs of an Invisible Man, the John Carpenter Invisible Man movie, which is just not good. It was his only kind of big studio film. And after that, John Carpenter was like, I'm never going to a big studio again. Got Sam Neill in it. And I remember almost nothing about it. I think I put it like third worst on my rankings for TFM a few years ago. Year of the Comet, Chaplin, Maverick, The Chamber, which is a John Grisham adaptation. Then he does like Hearts in Atlantis, which is an adaptation of a Stephen King, part of Hearts in Atlantis, just the one thing. Again, with Anthony Hopkins in it. He does the adaptation of Dreamcatcher as well. Like, I remember reading Dreamcatcher, and I'm like, this book does not need an adaptation. Like, it just really doesn't. It's alien weasels coming out of people's rear ends and killing them by exploding like that. It's just so weird. Like, the stuff he's done is just insane. But then it's also Absolute Power, directed by, hilariously enough, Clint Eastwood. So it's just obviously a very well-regarded, one of the best sort of writers of that time. Consultant on Dolores Claiborne. Guess what? That's another Stephen King adaptation, and also on Good Will Hunting. So he's done a lot of things, but apparently for this, and I bring that up because he apparently sort of researched Butch Cassidy for about 8 years on and off before kind of getting it down and writing it. And because he just found that these two characters were just kind of great material and great drama and wanted to put together. He kind of shipped it around, and apparently, according to Goldman, only one studio wanted to buy it, and that was the proviso that the two lead characters didn't flee to South America. And it's like he goes, well, that's actually what happened, and apparently went. And I'm quoting here from I think it's Sean Egan's book is on the extract on Wikipedia, and the quote is that somebody said, I've now lost it, something along the lines of, the studio had responded, "I don't give a shit. All I know is that John Wayne don't run away." And it's like, kind of, yeah. And again, you've got to remember this is sort of mid to late 60s. So this is when the neo-Western is coming in. And this is kind of part of the kind of neo-Western, the revisionist Western, if you want to call it. The one where the things are changing. The John Wayne image is kind of fading away, even though he is in a few things like that. And he wins for True Grit around this time. And hilariously enough said, if I knew all I had to do was play a drunken guy, like in a Western, I would have done this 30 years ago. It would have been great. So we have this kind of Western with these two characters, kind
Well,
of.
Kier, real quick on that. One, these characters are not John Wayne, so like, did
Yeah.
they read the script? And second, something interesting about this movie, because there's some kind of weird stuff in it, like riding around on a bicycle to whatever. It seems like
raindrops are falling on my head.
yes. I mean, it's like a proto James Gunn scene. You have the sepia tone stuff. And so I was looking like, what do scholars think of this film in terms of the new wave? And Peter Biskind, whenever he's writing about it in Easy Riders, Raging Bulls, he frames it as like it's a middle ground where it's not political and it's not a rebellious experiment, and it's too much into the like commercialized orientation, the commercialization of rebellion and the image of that. Whereas Pauline Kael on the other side is like, this movie's sick, and I fall into the Pauline Kael camp, especially if you're like, retrospectively looking at the new wave. Like, I don't care as much about the rebellion part so much as what was actually happening. And yeah.
I was going to say there's kind of there's almost like a punkish attitude, but it's sort of like PG-13 punk in a way. It's kind of sanitized down. You get a couple of gunshot wounds near the end and a few little bits of blood, but most of the stuff is fairly sanitized and it's fairly comedic to a certain extent. On the John Wayne thing, I think the whole point is that if you're doing this in the mid 60s, you've had 25, nearly 30 years of, you think of a Western, realistically, you're thinking John Wayne. And I mean, I know other people like Cary Grant,
Autry.
Cary Grant, Jimmy Stewart, and all that lot. Audie Murphy, Gregory Peck. I've done their fair share. Who's Planet of the Apes? Who's it? Charlton Heston has obviously done some as well. But realistically, you think of a Western, who's the first guy you think of? It's John Wayne. Like, that's just kind of how it works. And these guys are not John Wayne. They're funny. They're a little bit stupid. They're not the cleverest guys in the world, and that's kind of their appeal. They're very good and very good at shooting, and they've got like what they do down well. But they're kind of like coming up against roadblocks as things go on. You mentioned about the bicycle thing. This is set in 1889. That type of bicycle, because I just quickly looked it up, with kind of equal wheels, is invented in like the late sort of 1880s sort of thing. So this is a fairly new invention, and these kinds of things, this is the end of the West. So everything is changing, and this is something which was obviously happening at the time. They're looking at what happens when the West comes to an end, what happens when modernity comes in. This is the whole point of the Wild Bunch, and this is kind of thing with Butch Cassidy. They've had this racket for so long, and now it's kind of the gang's against them. They're wandering around trying to find something to do. They end up going south and like trying to occasionally do kind of escorting jobs and protection lots and making sure everything's good. And they turn up at one back and are like, I'm fairly sure we've hit this bank before at some point. Nobody look in the eye. Don't look in the eye. Don't look in the eye. We don't want to see that we're the guys that robbed the place at one point, and now we're kind of protecting their money, as it were. It's really funny, and there's just some beautiful moments. I think like the initial introduction of Paul Newman and Robert Redford at the table is so perfectly done, and the waiters, is like, "Don't worry, Sundance, we got this." And the waiters is like, "I'm sorry, I didn't know you were the Sundance Kid. I'm so sorry. Fine." And it's just the shot is great. You just see Robert Redford's face, and just like there's a gun sort of at the hip, and you're like, "Oh, we're gonna go for it." And there's like, "Oh no, the name. I'm gonna step back from this." And then it's quite funny because you've got this kind of build up to him, and then kind of he's under like Paul Newman's kind of let's do what I do, follow my lead, and he's kind of the serious, I'll do what you say, boss, to a certain extent, even though it kind of lightens up by the end. And it's like you're the tough guy that literally shoots anything from ages away, and Paul Newman's just trying to get everywhere through charm and suave.
Well, that's what I love about this movie compared to like a John Wayne movie is we watching that first scene after seeing the whole film. It's like, oh yeah, these guys are just bumbling their way through this and hoping that they don't get shot right now by cheating at cards.
And it's like most of the time, and the thing is that it works for them because most of the time they can get their way through by bumbling through it. They're not, very good at fighting, but they manage to get through, and it works for them. And they've managed to get themselves a little crew and everything like that. It's great.
I mean, you've got a couple of the all-time great kind of train robbery scenes in this, haven't you? But again, how they kind of dovetail into like more comedic kind of stuff. Like the recurring gag about the guy locks himself in with the safe, each time. And, it's not gonna, he's not gonna give in, because of what his boss might do to him. But then again, when they realise reinforcements coming, and there's these guys hunting them, know what they're doing, they turn tail and run. As I say, these guys aren't John Wayne. They're survivors. So they'll live to fight another day if they can, or live to run away another day and try and rob somewhere else.
Well, I can't think of which. I'm pretty sure it's in Inglourious Basterds that Tarantino has a similar scene where Brad Pitt is trying to convince somebody to do something, and I can't think of what it is now, but. Yeah, Paul Newman has a lot of like Brad Pitt to him in this movie for me. It's all
either
confidence.
that or Brad Pitt has a lot of Paul Newman.
Yes, yeah.
I mean, it's obviously like a combination that worked really well. I mean, a few years after this, they did The Sting together, which was similar in a lot of ways. A quite comedic take again on a crime film. It's more like a heist movie. But like a gambling heist movie. But again, very just that dynamics. They kind of that. Repartee that they have between them, it was gold, on big screen.
And then you've got the probably the most famous. I think there's probably two famous moments. There's the jump, and then like the last shot of the film as well.
Freeze frame.
But the jump comes in, and like that's such a beautifully stupid scene because that's the scene anyone knows. If you think of Butch Cassidy, Sundance Kid, that's the thing you're thinking of. Like it's not even a big climax. It's just they chase and they're up against a thing, and they're like, "Let's go out blasting." And Paul Newman was like, "Let's just jump into the river." And it's like, "Are you mad?" It's like, we'll survive as long as we don't die." It's just like, what? And it's like, I can't swim, and Paul Newman was like, "Yeah, this is the right time." It's like, of course you can't swim, but we're going to do it anyway. And they just launch in, and it's like, it's such a stupid moment, and it's a great moment, but at the same time, you go, "How is this the iconic moment?" Like any other film, somehow this isn't an iconic moment. It's just a thing that happens. It's just a part of the action. But I think it's the bit before, and I think it's kind of like Paul Newman laughing so much, and Robert Redford as the Sundance Kid going, "Don't worry, let me get 2 good shots out of him. I can do it." And Paul Newman was like, "This is ridiculous how we ended up like this. Let's just jump. Why not?" I think it's that setup which gets it into the jump into the river, which is great. Because you even watch the camera shots of them jumping. There's nothing even ridiculously spectacular about it. I mean, if you'd have thought about that now, you'd have had some kind of ridiculous cinematography or some ridiculous camera that follows them into the water or something to make it dynamic. No, they just kind of shove a camera back and keep it along and just kind of pan down as they jump in. Yeah, you've got a bit of a silhouette with some backlighting, but that's about it. And it's kind of nothing spectacular, but it's the idiocy. Idiocy? That's the one. I can't word right now. I blame the lack of camera. If I was on camera, obviously
because you're a ghost. You're
Yeah,
forgetting.
I'm actually podcasting at the moment, radio play version. Yeah, it's just the sheer stupidity of them getting into this situation and the fact that this is how they're gonna get out of it. And I think it's also because like whenever any characters are backed up against like that, everyone just goes, just jump, you'll survive. And this is the point where they are going to actually do it, and they're going, we should not be surviving this. And they actually point out, it's like, this is the time where it's like, let's jump. And it's like, okay, let's do what nobody else actually does in this situation or has to do, and they end up dying because otherwise it's not a threat, and let's brave it. It's just a beautifully, wonderfully stupid scene, and it's great fun. And most of the scenes are like that, They're done with a twinkle and a laugh, and and then you get right to the end, and you do have the serious moments. Don't get me wrong, but then you get right to the end, and it's like sort of they're there in South America, wherever they are, Chile, Colombia, Mexico. I don't know where they are, and then they get attacked, and it's sort of they're hiding around, and it's like, you run, I'll cover you, and they run, and they both get hit, and it's like, you call that running, you call that covering, and it's just a beautiful kind of thing there. And right at the end, they got nothing for it, and they come out blasting, and then you get the freeze frame, which is very sort of Gallipoli will do the same thing years later, and then Blackadder will do.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of like it's like the end of the Wild Bunch as well, isn't it? Obviously, we've
Yeah.
discussed this year, and except that just again a more comedic take on that, a more kind of warm and kind of camaraderie, kind of fueled take on that. Really, there's nothing. They're gonna die, but there's nothing bleak about it really. They're kind of they're doing what they love, and just being there for each other at the end,
Well,
There's almost a Thelma and Louise sort of feel to it as well. All these films where you have the people on the run, you can't have them survive because that would go against the way that the laws of justice works. And at a certain point in most American film, we have to keep the laws of justice kind of intact. So what do? You give them a kind of bittersweet ending so that everybody wins. They win because they go out doing what they needed to, and the law wins. Therefore, we maintain a sort of Andrew Tudor sort of kind of comforting sort of level like that. So it's a really nice ending, and it works.
And you have the scene where somebody tells them, you're going to die. You pretty much just get to choose where you die at this point. So, it recalls that inevitability of their doom.
Yeah. It really is a great movie, even if it's I say even if it's from 1969. All this time later, it's still a really fun watch. It's still a great laugh. It's still a great time, and
even if it's one of those studio films.
Yeah, the studio films. Ugh. The very
like
thing that
Easy
Robert
Rider.
Redford would revile against. Ew. Yeah, and then obviously went on to get nominated for 6 Oscars, I think. So several at least. 7. So it got nominated for Best Picture, Best Director, and Best Sound, and it won for Best Story and Screenplay for William Goldman, Best Cinematography Conrad Hall, Best Original Score for Motion Picture that's not a musical by Burt Bacharach, and Best Original Song, Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head, got Best Original Song. Apparently, I'm just looking here, apparently Burt Bacharach and Hal David wrote the song for the film, and apparently some people thought it was the wrong tone, but George Roy Hill insisted on its conclusion. Apparently, Redford thought it was disapproving of the use of the song, but acknowledged he was wrong. And apparently said, when the film was released, I was highly critical. How did the song fit in with the film? There was no rain. At the time, it seemed like a dumb idea. How wrong I was, as it turned out to be a giant hit.
Yeah. I mean, Burt Bacharach doing the music in general was a bit of a left field choice, but you got to admit, in practice, it does work. It's just that slightly askew kind of off-center kind of tonal thing going on. It kind of all fits and it kind of works real well in the end.
And also, Kieran, to your point about like ways this movie is iconic, I think that scene is probably at least an unconscious influence on any, upbeat song with buddies, bonding montage that you'll see on like TV or in a silly movie where, it's set to exactly this kind of song, if not this. Come on, let me tell you about my bears. You know, that kind of montage.
Yeah.
You know, I haven't seen it in a movie before this, and this is obviously a mainstream film.
Yeah, it's the sort of thing. It's like if the scene was in a rom-com, there would be no difference. You know, I'm not
Yeah.
saying if this was in Friends Without Benefits or No Strings Attached that it would exactly work, but it's the kind of thing that with a few small changes you could slip in, and there's not that much out.
And I think Catherine Ross in this is good, and she has really good chemistry with Redford playing his like girlfriend or wife or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that first scene where they are together, it's really uncomfortable at first.
It
But
is.
then,
Yeah, I'd completely forgotten about that scene. I've not seen this
Yeah.
song in a while. And it's like, oh, where's this going? I don't remember him being like this. But then it's like, oh, okay.
okay, no, it's fine. He has a girlfriend that lives here.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the bike scene it's Butch riding around with her, which then also confused me. I was like, wait, whose girlfriend is it? But when they come back, he says, "Oh, I stole your woman," and he's like, "Ah, rah, rah, rah." And I think that scene's important to
That is an
establish.
amazing impression of Robert Redford. Can you do that
Thank
every
you.
time we mention him?
Yeah, no, I was going for reverence there. Whatever. The point is, it really helps establish she's part of the fabric of this gang. Which I mean, later she's in the robbery montages in South America, so she's really getting in on the action now.
Yeah. Like I say, I mean, I was gonna say I'd give it a 6, but it's better than that. It's so much higher than a 6. So we're bringing out the old catchphrases now. But yeah, it's really good. I had a blast rewatching it. I'm like, yeah. I forgot how good this was. There are some films that you're like, I know there are classics, but I haven't seen them in so long. And then you rewatch it, it's like, yeah, there's a reason why this is meant to be a good film. It's because it is actually a good film, strangely enough.
Yeah, it's weird how that works.
I know, right?
Yeah. But so obviously, the '60s happen, and they move into the '70s, and boy, are there all kinds of changes going on in the world, and Vietnam, that's a thing that's going on. But also, Robert Redford is making movies because he's his picture is next to handsome in the dictionary, and so people continue casting him. And one of his early '70s movies, he gets a bit more political than he does in his other work. So, Sam, what did you watch from Robert Redford?
Yeah, so it's only 3 years after Butch and Sundance, but already he's kind of showing his versatility of the kind of roles he'll kind of take on. So I watched a very, even though it's a 1972 movie, it seems very timely even now. I watched The Candidates, which so it's a 1972 satirical drama by Michael Ritchie. And it's about the US Senate election campaign for California, where idealistic environmental lawyer Bill McKay, played by Robert Redford, is recruited by ruthless campaign manager Marvin Lucas, played by Peter Boyle, as the Democrat nominee, not to win, but to upset the apple cart against the long-serving Republican incumbent Crocker Jarman, played by Don Porter. But can McKay, the son of a former governor with no real interest in politics himself, snap victory from the jaws of defeat without losing his principles? Short answer is yes. Yes, he can. Well, yes, yes and no. He
Mostly.
does snap. He does snap victory from jaws of defeat, but it's kind of left open to kind of how much has he lost of himself in the process and what the future will hold. Basically,
I was going to say this is the second film in a row. This is good, but is it really? You know, and it's sort of,
yeah.
Let's talk about the rest of the film first.
Yeah, I mean, this is quite a dry movie. I'd say it is fun. It's funny in places. And it's clever, and the script's like really. The Oscar-winning script is really good, but you kind of have to be kind of in the right mood for it. But I think just just how little politics in a lot of ways has changed over decades kind of adds an extra kind of punch to this, really.
Well, another contextual thing is in American politics, like, Mr. Smith Goes to Washington was in like what, the 50s. When you were making political movies, you couldn't really criticize institutions prior to the late 60s and early 70s. So I don't know how novel this is as like a political film in that way.
Well, yes. So Mr. Smith was came out in 39, and at the time it got a lot of negative press for seemingly just for daring to suggest that senators could be corrupt, and have agendas beyond the the good of the American people on their minds.
I was going to say 4 years later.
With gangster movies, there are like sometimes corrupt politicians, but it's really put more on the gangster stuff, and it's not so much about criticizing the system.
Yeah, I mean, this did remind me a lot of another Frank Capra film we did a few years later. I think it was from 49 off the top of my head, State of the Union, with Spencer Tracy and Catherine Hepburn. And that's, again, quite similar in terms of like really politically savvy kind of people basically plucking a nobody out of obscurity, and trying to mold him, into their image, and kind of serve their agenda, basically. So it's quite something like that. The only difference to that is like the political kind of point behind it. Obviously, Capra was a famous conservative, whereas this one is very, very much, on kind of the Democrat, kind of more liberal kind of side of things, politically. So apparently the role of Senator Crocker Jarman, again, go back to the Frank Capra connection, was originally offered to James Stewart, but he turned down the part because he felt it was derogatory towards conservative politicians. Which, it kind of is.
Jimmy, can we hear a response about that from beyond the grave? No? Okay.
Not any kind of commitment on this, It's definitely not the kind of thing I would like to comment on.
Okay, thanks, Jimmy.
You're welcome.
So Redford was very creatively involved in this from the start. He kind of there were scripts kind of floating about, but he kind of shepherded the project to completion and personally hired the director. The screenwriter Jeremy Larner, he was a political campaign speechwriter himself from only a few years before this. So he wrote for
Richard Nixon.
He was a speechwriter for the presidential campaign of Minnesota Senator Eugene McCarthy from the 60s, I think 68, I believe. And basically, he based a lot of this on kind of his experiences of kind of what he saw and heard during those campaigns, and he knew kind of from first hand what was required and how politicians had to dilute their views and compromise over a campaign, even if they had like strong held principles at the start. You kind of, you go for like the viable centre ground, you've got to kind of compromise on some things. We obviously still see that to this day, just how you can be very strong on particular points, particular issue at the start of your campaign, but you need, if to get more voters on your side, you do need to kind of compromise and kind of give up some of your strongly held beliefs to an extent. As you mentioned, Jacob, obviously in this era, it's Vietnam and Lyndon B. Johnson, obviously having a terrible time of trying to manage that, after Kennedy, and then Nixon taking over as president. I kind of find it interesting that this came out after. This would have been after Watergate, wouldn't it? It was Watergate 71? 70s?
I thought Watergate was after this, but...
Watergate is 76, I want to say.
It was after...
No, Watergate scandal, 70s.
74?
The affair began in 72.
Oh, it's
and impeachment process as well. So it's basically the same year as this was released. I don't think it was the Washington Post story was out at this point, but going on, and
So it's
that's like the political scandal of the age, and but it's kind of there's something in the water, I think, something in the air that they're kind of suspicion about, like Republican kind of politicians, and it's kind of interesting that a few years later, Redford would go on to, starring in the most famous drama about the Watergate scandal, All President's Men as well. So again,
Hilariously, hilariously enough, I'm just looking Wikipediaing it. This film is released, just according to Wiki, June 29th, 1972. You go on Wiki, apparently the affair begins on June 17th, 1972. So it's not even 2 weeks after the whole Watergate thing kicks off. This is released.
Yeah.
Well, and that explains the plot of this movie to me, because it's so idealistic, and it's about this great, principled guy who, like, he's seeing the behind the scenes of politics, but it doesn't quite go to the Watergate level that I would expect of a 70s movie, and that's why we didn't know about it while this was being made.
Yeah, and I think, and what makes him McKay, the character, refreshing is that he's not a politician. He's he's an ordinary guy, with his views and his values, and he'll be very honest about that. I mean, at the start they assure him there's no way you'll win, so say what you like. We just want you in there just to offer something a bit different. Because these campaign team, they've just overseen like a losing campaign, and basically right, who's next? And they're passing around papers, and it's like, oh, there's this handsome hotshot lawyer, and look, he's the son of a former governor of California. Well, that's two there. Great, we've got this golden boy, who can talk like an ordinary person and engage with voters, and he comes from good political stock, But equally, we're not rocking the boat too much. We just want people to know that there are other options out there, but he's never going to win. This guy, the incumbent, he's been there for 3 terms now, and he's trusted, and he's grandfatherly, and he's a veteran. All that.
Well, I'm just seeing very very quickly. I just want to bring this up because I found another connection, obviously going back to things. So Jeremy Larner eventually writes the script, and he had about a month to write a script. He said that apparently without the help he received from Robert Town, he would not have been able to complete the script. Robert Town, he obviously did, if nothing else, Chinatown, and the Two Jakes and Mission Impossibles. But he's also looking down, a special writing consultant on Bonnie and Clyde. Just saying, it all connects.
It does, yeah. I mean, some of the quotes in this. So the screenplay got the Best Original Screenplay Oscar that year. It was also got an Oscar for Best Sound. Personally, I would have thrown in Best Cinematography there as well. I think that should have got a nod, because it's really interesting how they use screens in the film. This is obviously the era where political campaigns were appearing on TV. They're entertainment and mass media events. For the first time, and just how every time he appears on like a monitor or a TV screen, McKay looks a bit distorted, a bit strange. And there's just some really interesting is how he's presented, almost like he's losing himself, through like the prism of TV. Speaking out to more people. He's losing his identity to an extent.
The way they shot that scene was incredible, because they do include some of the TV stuff, but I thought it was edited and shot really well.
I was going to say, and a lot of the interviews and just in general, when he's kind of out on the screen, there's very much a kind of faux documentary, not necessarily a cinema verite thing, but that kind of sort of man on the street kind of filming style. It's all handheld and that kind of thing. And normally people say stuff like that, and I don't normally notice it. This, I noticed it because it has a feel of like almost like sort of news footage kind of feel to it. And then when it gets the more dramatic moments inside, it will get to the more dramatic moments inside.
Yeah, I've seen a few reviews that kind of comment on like the kind of verite feel of it, kind of pseudo documentary style of it. Only a lot of it's obviously like handheld cameras, following Redford through crowds and stuff like that. So it's feels very mobile and kind of naturalistic in that way. But people always talk about like the Robert Altman style overlapping dialogue. It's very natural. People don't like finish sentences; they're talking over each other, and it's very kind of rapid fire. And it's almost quite hard to keep up with some of the back and forth sometimes. But that kind of adds to like verisimilitude of the whole thing. It's kind of interesting.
And I think
something like
the scene where him and Peter Boyle are in the bathroom, like that adds to the
Yeah.
tension of the moment too, because someone's like
Yeah.
banging on the door trying to get in.
I just kept thinking for that scene. It's like, God, it's a really important character-based scene. But I'm worried about the guy behind the door because he obviously really needs to go.
Yeah. And Robert Redford's like, can we just do this in the morning? Which, I mean, yeah, that's.
Yeah. But it's a nice kind of one-liners in this, I mean, just two sides of political divide, So the incumbent Crocker Jarman, by the way, what a name! What it can only be an American, that character.
With German ancestry.
Yeah, I mean, I thought about this kind of my first thought of this line, which was how Republicans never change. The talking points are just the same today in previous two presidential campaigns, where he says, well, I remember this. I remember my mum and dad went through the 30s without welfare, without poverty programs. Why, none of us kids even had a social worker. It's literally, it's like woke, for the 70s, isn't it? It's just like,
it's the exact same messaging, just packaged in 1970s old shucksism. By the way, Sam, real quick, Sam, speaking of mom and dad, your dad has weighed in to say All the President's Men and 3 Days of the Condor, along with The Candidate. That's not a bad few years. And Jeremiah Johnson is worth a watch.
Yeah. Thank you for weighing in, Dad. So and he also talks about like the solution to welfare. The solution to welfare is not more welfare; it's more enterprise, more industry, more jobs. Just very kind of, it's like early Reaganomics, basically, isn't it? It's like Reagan a decade before Reagan. It's just, but
the time when Reagan's still acting.
Yeah. The opposite side, you've got McKay talking about, we subsidize trains, we subsidize planes. Why not subsidize people? At that point, I was thinking, I'd vote for him.
Yeah. Well, that scene's fun because it's him first announcing it. So someone asks him, well, what do you think about property taxes? Like, I don't know, which is a great, honest answer.
And that is the most refreshing thing. It's like you never hear a politician today saying, I don't know. And that's an issue. It's like there's nothing wrong with if you say, I don't know. I'll go away and find out, and I'll get back to you. I'll talk to my people.
One way I think he's compromised himself is later in the film. He's just talking about union issues. Like, I know he's a lawyer, but he talks about it with such confidence and with a plan in a way that earlier in the film he might have just said, look, I don't necessarily know all this stuff. I'm not an expert, but I'm going to do my best for all of you. And I think that shows kind of the change in his character from who he was to, you're a politician now, son.
Yeah, and like his kind of discomfort when his dad finally, turns up, and weighs in on the campaign, just wants. If he's got to be a politician, he wants to do it off his own back, but then this kind of old timer kind of turns up and starts schmoozing, and shaking hands with people and just trying to, get in on the prestige of it all. I mean, it's nice to see. It was nice to see Melvyn Douglas in that role. Obviously, classic Hollywood actor. Still acting. Well into the 70s. Again, I could kind of almost see someone like James Stewart, in that kind of role if he was a bit more on board with the politics of the whole thing. But Redford obviously is the way he looks, is the kind of the instigator of the whole thing. When they first see him, it's like, this is the kind of face we could have fronting a campaign. I think we're all laughing in the chat earlier on about this. They seem like, well, the only thing we've got to do to get you into politics, we've got to get you a haircut. So they cut his hair slightly shorter. I mean, it's still 70s, so it's still like long, and then 86 sideburns, and it just means just taking off the cheeks, but it's still got massive 70s sideburns.
Yeah. They're just not all the way down to his jawline. They're only down to the bottom of his ear.
Yeah.
And yeah, his hair looked exactly the same.
Yeah.
I don't know. Robert Redford got away with having a little boy haircut for his entire life because that was trendy in the 70s.
And he's Robert Redford, and I think when you've got that amount of money and influence power, you can have your hair however you'd like it.
It's true. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. And so he's got obviously this charisma, and you very much buy that. This is the kind of guy who would be able to front campaign and get people on side and become popular just by virtue of being handsome, charismatic, but talking very straight with people. I mean, I think that's the general argument about if there is an argument for people like Trump. People say, oh, they talk straight. They don't talk down to us. And so maybe that's kind of almost an origin of that.
I mean, we say that he's charismatic, but as a character here, he cannot talk to people at all. That's kind of the point. He's awful at it.
Yeah.
They don't want to shake his hand while he's greeting them.
And he's just there, kind of doing his thing. It's like, I'm running for the office.
Yeah. That's very early days, isn't it? That's like his first kind of task, isn't it? First pushing into a line of factory workers, work.
Well, they're like, oh, we can edit this footage into making it look like he says this.
Yeah. Like the scene in the hospital, like he's in a corridor, like screaming children and people talking over each other, and him not being able to get his point across. Again, just those key snippets of footage that they can turn into like a campaign. I mean, it did make me laugh, like all just how over the top like your kind of political campaign kind of videos are, and just we have like party political broadcasts in the UK, but they're kind of they're pretty
not streamed into the house.
They're pretty tame in comparison, really.
Yeah.
Well, y'all have like very strict dollar limits you can spend on campaigns too, whereas we can sink as much as we want into videos of people saying, oh, I'm actually amazing and I did this, this, and this, and it doesn't matter if it's true. You could just say whatever you want.
I mean, many people have argued that presidential campaigns are not actually about who has the best policies, it's who can raise the most money.
Yeah. But also, wasn't it JFK who said it was not it's not what you say, it's how you say it, and it just, if you say things with enough confidence, then your point will go across.
As we know, he lost the Teamsters Union, which is why Robert De Niro assassinated him in The Irishman. So,
yeah, I mean, it did make me laugh. The Teamsters scene in this, where he meets like the Teamsters leader in that hotel room and just completely, absolutely, just completely dismisses him. But it's almost the guy just respects his honesty, basically. So, I think we've got a lot in common. Responsible. I don't think we've got shit in common.
Beautiful.
Cut to the next scene. Please welcome your next senator.
Yeah, I think you're right. There's very much a tells it like it is to this character. That when people say I want to have a beer with that guy, and that's how they decide who they're voting for. That's interesting.
Yeah. And so the way this ends, against the odds, he does end up, being elected. But it's that finest kind of passage of the film, really, that final scene where he's just been bustled out and he asks for final word with his campaign manager, and they can't really have a debrief, because they're just they've been hounded. They go into like the goods elevator, with the kitchen staff, and they're booted out of that. They finally get to a hotel room, but they can't even get words out before they're dragged out again. And it ends with that immortal kind of ellipsis. Rob Redford asking, "So what now?"
And it's just a really kind of bleak. I'm reminded at the end of
it's a bit like the end of it. It's about the end of The Graduate, and so
That's the one I'm thinking of. Yes, I knew it was the something. All I think of Mrs. Robinson. Yeah.
That long shot kind of held on their faces, as like the kind of their situation kind of really sinks in with them. Yeah, it's very, very much like that. But he just does it with a line, and kind of asking his wife, just what their future holds, essentially.
Was this a good thing? Was this good? Sort of.
Yeah. I mean, leaving it that kind of unknown kind of note is kind of a strength, but it would have been kind of interesting if they ever did like a follow up to this. We found out exactly whether it works out for him or not.
The presidential candidate.
Something like that. Yeah.
That sounds like the kind of weird sequel they would make in the 70s. I can't think of the one I'm thinking of, but.
Well, like Paul Newman did a long gestation sequel. The Color of Money is a 2 decades after The Hustler. So, Rob Redford could have done the same thing with this.
No, this is the thing. Now that he's died, people will rediscover this movie, and they'll get somebody to play his like grandson that's now running for it. The candidate 2.
That would be great.
Electric Boogaloo.
Yeah, but the thing is, it will be 2 of them. They'll be twins, so it can be the candidates.
Yeah.
Because it's like alien, therefore aliens. You got to pluralize it.
The movie I was thinking of, Going Down the Road, is this random 1970 Canadian film, which got a 2011 sequel about Where Are They Now? But
Nobody knew where they were to begin with.
Yeah. I think that an interesting thing about this movie is Peter Boyle's character, what is he? And thank you for illuminating for me, Sam. He's just a cipher for the author and his experience, and kind of what are you supposed to do? What do you do in a campaign? Whereas the guy crushing lollipops is more like the system.
I think Peter Boyle's character, that's just his life. That's just what he does. It's what he's done for a long time, and I think it's all he knows how to do. Really. And then win or lose, as soon as the campaign's finished, right, on to the next one. Let's plan for the next one. What's our next objective? What we're shooting for now?
Yeah.
I did see a thing in one piece about just talking about due to the film's popularity. It's been misinterpreted by many viewers over the years, because of course it has, including the future Republican Vice President Dan Quayle, who spoke about trying to model himself on the mannerisms of Bill McKay. And this led Lana, the screenwriter, to reach out to Quayle in an open letter where he stated that the candidate is not a how-to picture, it's a watch-out picture. And you're who we've got to watch out for.
Oh, that's amazing.
Very good.
Well, I'm sure I'm going to act like Robert Redford is a good idea for a politician.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of I just to an extent, we just again bringing up again Frank Capra's political movies presented conservatives and kind of how they should be, really very idealistic version of that, very kind of old town boy kind of importance of family and helping your neighbor and everything like that, and kind of skipping over the less kind of palatable aspects of kind of the more right-wing political persuasion.
Sure. Which at that time was black people can't use the same water fountain as white people.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And this, obviously, Rob Redford is very idealistic, but he is kind of the kind of politician we'd hope for today. At least, very least, someone with principles. Who isn't corrupted and part of the system at this stage. He's got a few things he thinks he can make a difference with, and. I mean, just see where, again, nothing's changed. The scene where talking about, doing the trial run, the kinds of questions will be asked, and they asking the abortion question, and he comes out and says, I think we should have the right to choose. And they're like, okay, that, but not that. How about you just say, we need to do more research on this.
Yeah. Well, because another answer, he's like, it's the woman's choice. So they're like, ooh, don't talk about women.
Yeah.
your dad once again, Sam. He says, I remember the candidate saying to me at least that you do have to compromise your principles to succeed, and the price you have to pay. The system is corrupt and corrupting. Lots of Kennedy vibes too. And Sam, what you were just saying, where he is this sort of best case scenario, sort of for a politician. He is also
for
a nepo
now,
baby.
at least.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. If every millionaire child of a politician became a for the people, and not for the billionaires, politician, that would be nice.
Yeah.
I don't think we've had a good president, well, aside from Obama, since Harrison Ford. I don't think really.
Who's we, Kieran? You've had presidents?
Let's be honest. At this point, it's the world's problem. Your presidency.
That's true. Yeah. At least at one point we were only messing up Vietnam and not like funding people who separate the UK from the EU. So.
Yeah. So the candidate, good movie, good Robert Redford performance. Kind of still relevant now.
And now let's go forward about 45 years into the future.
Yeah, well, along the way, Sam mentioned he directed a movie. He's in The Sting, which reunites him with Newman and the guy who directed Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. He does Out of Africa. He does Indecent Proposal. Which I forgot he's in that.
We have covered that on the podcast before. Not his finest hour, but I don't think it was his fault.
Sam, your dad reminds us, The Natural, which that's one of those, Kieran. Yes. I watched it as a little kid.
My dad loves The Natural. He loves a baseball movie.
Oh, I love that.
And then it's when you see he's in things like Charlotte's Web, and then you forget he's in Captain America. Like, what?
Yeah. And Sam, you brought up a movie he did that was really interesting in 2013. All Is Lost. He's on a boat.
Yes, that's true. Yes, we had a few kind of interesting kind of final flourishes in his career, in front of the camera. I mean, obviously we'll talk about David Lowery in a minute, but he did. He was in a Disney remake. He was in the Peach Dragon remake, and he's great even in that. I would say if you haven't seen that, it's probably the best of the Disney remakes. You have to go for a Disney remake. Go for that one because they change most of it and do their own thing, which works really well. So.
Well, and talking about David Lowery, which now we're going to have to do a David Lowery episode. That's very much a David Lowery driven thing, and I think he has a mindset about film that does allow him to work in that crowd pleasing Disney space while not compromising his personal likes and aesthetic choices and things like that, which you see come through in The Old Man and the Gun. He met Redford making Pete's Dragon, and they were working on The Old Man. No, they were working on The Old Man and the Gun, and then he brought him into Pete's Dragon. And this movie had been cooking for a while for Lowery. It's based on an article from the New Yorker called The Old Man and the Gun. Just doesn't have the ampersand. And it's got a picture of this guy in a blue suit and a brown hat running away from a bank. And he took that image and he was like, that is the character in this movie, Forrest Tucker. He is going to wear that outfit. And that's what the movie is. The movie is basically, it's David Lowery likes Robert Redford, and he likes Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, and he likes heist movies, and he likes westerns, and he likes cowboy or police procedural catching a bad guy movies, and he just kind of brought it all together in this story because those are the elements of this story.
It feels a bit like a sort of almost a British sort of older generation kind of movie, the kind of thing that you now see like Michael Caine and Morgan Freeman in the last sort of 10-15 years that occasionally you get. They do like Hatton Garden Club. What's the one where like the the guy steals a painting or something like that came out a couple of years ago when he's like 70, 75 or something like that.
Yeah.
I can't remember what it is. You know, a couple of them come around, and there's one with Morgan Freeman, and I think, and Michael Caine, and they decide to rob a bank or something like that. It feels like a cross between that, one of these kind of, I don't know, maybe rated 12 sort of comedy caper kind of things with the odd curse word in it, crossed with kind of the classic sort of Bonnie and Clyde Western sort of thing. Maybe a bit of something like Catch Me If You Can sort of thing thrown in with a cat and mouse going on there as well.
I would describe it as like tasteful Tarantino, where instead of like excessive violence and saying the N word, it's just like, you know, a really charming criminal and his lady friend, and just this very interesting cast of characters coming in and out of the film. The children of the investigator, like, I don't know. It's a very weird movie when you start to dissect it. But I think it's overall, it's just a vibe movie. And you're either going to like what it's showing you or you're not.
Also, just
because it's paper
thinking
thin.
Of the Duke that came out in 2020, and it's got who's it got in it? It's
Jim Broadbent.
Jim Broadbent and Helen Mirren. Yeah, that's the one I was thinking of. Sorry, carry on.
Oh, it's all good. Yeah, I mean, it's old, two old people. Robert Redford and Sissy Spacek. We're bringing back Badlands. We were talking about that earlier. She is sort of the central character in that film, and people know her from Carrie too. And apparently, she and Redford had crossed paths back in the day, but really didn't meet until this movie was being made. But whenever David Lowery on the audio commentary is talking about this movie, he's like, I wrote these two roles specifically for these people. And what I really wanted to bring to life was like old Hollywood once again on our big screens, and having that sort of majesty and feeling to it, even though they're older, that, you know, they're still doing what they could back in their, you know, quote heyday.
I'm reminded of Carrie Fisher when she stood around and them going, "Oh, you're being brought back for Star Wars. Did you have to think about that?" She goes, "No. When you're my age, any role you get offered in Hollywood, you take. It doesn't matter." And I'm just thinking, it's so nice to see Sissy Spacek at the age she was now, and it still is now, still working like full-length feature films, not just the odd cameo somewhere, you know, major kind of roles and stuff, even if it's smaller indie films. It's like, it's so good to see these people still getting a thing, and especially older female actresses as well that are kind of, you know, the olden age, because it gets to the point where, you know, these people can't work as much, and if you're not like absolute A-lister sort of Judi Dench, Helen Mirren, that kind of thing, if you're sort of the bottom rung had sort of success back in the day, it could be that you see them like in a film every 2 to 3 years for about 10 minutes in a film, and they're not getting paid, and they're having to do sort of kind of the shows and doing signings and paying for autographs and stuff like that. You know, it's nice to see them continuing to work and be in stuff.
A Redford co-star, Jane Fonda, will pop up in like rom-coms and stuff in her later years. Yeah, I really like Sissy Spacek being in this, and the way she plays the character, and she does bring a lot to the film. Like, literally, she would point out scenes to David Lowery and be like, "Hey, maybe we could do this," and he'd be like, "Yes, that's a great idea." Like, his collaborative process just sounds ideal if you're somebody who works on movies. As far as like influences for specific aspects of the movie, specific moments, specific scenes, I didn't write down the 24 or so things that he brought up, but he mentioned Claire Denis, the Coen brothers, Coppola, and Walter Murch separately, recreating like his own scenes. So, you know, he's taking auteur theory to a meta level, where he uses two different actors who play a certain character or type of character one of his films, and he just puts them in that exact role, sometimes even being that exact character. You got live action Fantastic Mr. Fox was something he was shooting for, apparently. He brought up the movie Alien 3. because there's a point where they're going to a movie theater, and I guess that's what would have been showing at that, because Miller's Crossing is the other movie. So I think Robert Redford is playing down in age in this movie because there's a little bit of a time jump. And then finally, Alex Ross Perry, if you've heard of him, that's one of his favorite filmmakers. So if you're like me and haven't, maybe go check him out because he's got something going on. Anyway, the movie itself is about Robert Redford. He's playing an old guy bank robber. And, it's just sort of like there is a story in the sense that Casey Affleck's character, who's the cop, is trying to catch him, but there's nothing Robert Redford's really building towards or working towards. And something Lowry talked about with the costuming and with some of the scenes is they were shot and written so they could be moved around in the story and used in the right place. There was a point where when he goes back to jail, that was the ending of the film. She said, Sissy Spacek says, "Stay put." And that's how the movie ended. But unfortunately, the real life Forrest did not stay put. He had other things to do after getting out of prison. But yeah, he's again. He's an old man bank robber. And at the beginning, he's just kind of charismatic. He's in his early 80s at this point while they're filming this. But he still looks like Robert Redford. He's very charismatic. And he's mysterious, though. Who is this old man bank robber? Obviously, he's robbing banks, but he's happy and he's smiling and he's encouraging the tellers. Oh, hey, you're doing great at this robbery. Keep it up. And some of this is self-conscious from like the Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid stuff where they're robbing people and they're kind of being nice about it. They don't want to shoot people. They're having conversations with the guy. So he's drawing from that, but also that's apparently how Forrest Tucker was, the real person. And the movie's intentionally playing with like mythologizing and telling you, hey, this is actually what happened. One thing he left out was at the end of the movie when there's a car chase, he got shot a lot, and in the movie he only got shot once, and he said, I thought it would stretch the bounds of credulity if he got shot as many times as he did in real life, which that's always fun to hear. The real story is actually too crazy, and I had to tone it down for them.
Yeah.
But, in the beginning, he has all these really nice scenes with Sissy Spacek as they kind of get to know each other. And apparently a lot of that or all of it was shot over the course of 2 weeks. And so everyone was falling in love with Forrest. And I forget Sissy Spacek's name, but falling in love with the pair of them. And
Jewel, I think?
Yeah, Jewel. That is it. Which Forrest Tucker was married to a woman named Jewel that he met in his older age. That's a real part of the story. So they had all those scenes. They shot them together. The cast and crew were in love. And then the next thing that they shot, the first scene with Casey Affleck, was when he's with Elizabeth Moss. And Elizabeth Moss is Robert Redford's character's daughter that he abandoned. And she's talking about how he was always in and out of prison and saying, like, I'm going to change, and never did. And he was just the worst. And that was the moment for the crew where they were reminded, oh, yeah, this outlaw guy who we think is fun and charming and cool actually is not a great person. And so that's really what the movie is about, is unspooling the thread of who is Robert Redford's character, because he just seems kind of like an old guy who robs banks, but it turns out he's very much a I don't know, like Camusian character maybe, where he's just pushing against the absurdity of life by doing what he loves and what makes him happy, which is robbing banks. That's why he's always got a smile on his face. He's doing what he loves. He's where he's meant to be, as he tells Jewel in a scene where they sit on her really nice ranch. We get a very conscious shot of Robert Redford on a horse, covered in a poncho, as police cars pull up to snatch him, which that was Robert Redford on a horse. You know, you gotta put him on one. And then there was also Casey Affleck. He goes to meet Robert Redford's character in the hospital after he gets caught by the police, and he hands him $100 bill. And while he does it, he does this, which is a reference to the Sting. It's something Redford's character does, and apparently in while that was being shot, Lowry was just watching Robert Redford's face, and so Casey Affleck came up and said, "Oh, did you see that I did the thing from the Sting?" And he was like, "Ooh, no, I didn't see it." But yeah, poor Casey Affleck. It worked out great in the film, though. And what Robert Redford does so well in this movie is he's playing a character that's lying. But the way he talks, he's telling the truth. Like, everything he's saying, he believes about himself. And it takes, his decades of experience as an actor to be able to put together just... It's not like a big performance. It's very subtle. And so much of it is in the eyes and in the smile and in the tone. It's not very physical because he's an older guy. And we see him do the Robert De Niro shuffle a little bit. Because he's like 81 years old. But like he's so charming that everything about it is convincing. And the fun thing about Forrest Tucker is that he broke out of prison 16 times, and we get to watch all 16 of those. And they were shot in, apparently they would drive around Fort Worth, Texas, which is where I live, and they would just find places that look like prisons. They'd say, okay, let's go do an escape here. And one of the final ones has young Robert Redford from the movie The Chase, which is a movie that opens with a prison break. So they just took that and they put it into the montage.
It's very much like what they did with Terence Stamp in the Limey, for the flashback for his criminal character earlier in his career. He took a scene from a Ken Loach film, I believe, because they thought, well, this works well enough. He's basically playing the same guy. This dialogue out of context could kind of work for this film as well. Yeah, let's reuse that.
Yeah,
there's a shot with him kind of. I think it's like Escape 4 when he's running through the tunnel and they've got the searchlights going, the flashlights going at them, and for some reason I thought of the ending of The Third Man as well, when he's in the tunnels and you've got the light bouncing off. I don't know if that was a deliberate homage in some way.
Kieran, it's funny you say that because yes, every single one of those was a deliberate homage to a different prison escape from a film.
We've got a Shawshank Redemption in there somewhere.
I'm not sure. Maybe they count the like filing down, as sort of like the slow dig. I'm not sure, but they just took escapes from movies and put them in to those scenes.
Beautiful.
Yeah, because David Lowery is Quentin Tarantino in this film. He's putting together everything. So the Claire Denis scene. It's from what's her movie? 95 something of rum, drops of rum, shots of rum. I don't know. It's Claire Denis, and she has a scene where characters are dancing. And that's where he got the idea for Casey Affleck and his wife are dancing in the kitchen to Lola while they talk about the case. Because it's warm and it's human.
35 shots of rum.
There you go, 35 shots of rum. Yeah, so there you go. That's how this movie kind of came together. Was I like the idea for this. The inside of this bank looks cool. Apparently most of it was shot in Ohio, but he did get a lot shot in Texas. And the final shot of... Now, it's not the final shot of Robert Redford on screen, because as we said, he's in TV stuff after this. And also the... what is it? The Avengers Endgame came out after, even though it was in the can first.
Yeah.
But technically, his last scene on screen in his film, in a Robert Redford movie, is him calling a police officer to say to him, "Oh, hey, yeah, I'm doing what I love," before going in to rob a bank, just very casually walking in there. And David Lowery said, if I had known this was maybe going to be the last thing we see of him on screen, I would have done something bigger. But I think it's such a testament to Robert Redford that it just fits the role. It's what the guy did. Um, his final actual like in the can shot for a theatrical film was him in quote St. Louis, Missouri in the dark calling I think Jewel I don't remember exactly who he's calling because the scene didn't stand out to me while watching the movie, but it does in the commentary because it's the last scene that he shot for any film. And it's just him on the phone. They're in Fort Worth, Texas. You can see the Fort Worth skyline behind them, even though they're supposed to be in St. Louis, Missouri. And most of that sequence was shot in Dayton, Ohio. But yeah, just Robert Redford on a phone talking to somebody. And I think, you know, much like the character in this film, he got to go out the way he wanted, you know, doing what he loves. It wasn't like he passed tragically and like, oh, well, now Avengers Endgame is the last thing we're ever going to see Robert Redford in. Oh, no. No, he retired. He got to enjoy the last 5 years of his life after he sold Sundance and made his last couple of movies. And I think that's great for him. And I think this is a great movie to go out on. Lowery obviously loves and respects him and film history and had a lot of intention behind what he was doing. So
it's just a really like classy kind of cap to his career, isn't it? Really, it's just, you know, nothing too fancy, just perfectly pitched. You know, makes most of his strengths. You know, very entertaining, very 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 watchable, and obviously packed full of references, you know, to all his roles, you know, throughout his career. You know, yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah, there's a lot of really good scenes. Like, I could see how, you know, a lot of this was made in the edit, but at the same time, like, there's just so many great moments. Like, I love the car chases, and I love the slow scenes in the diner, which is the same diner in The Killing of a Sacred Deer, which is also it's shot in the same way. Yeah. And Kieran, you would appreciate David Lowery realizes that reshoots are not negative. They're a tool, and he always leaves a little space in his budget so that he can get people back together and shoot stuff if he needs to. That's something he talked about.
Always leave your contingency.
Yep.
2.5% of the budget.
And, gosh, Sam's dad, I'm sorry I've been talking, but Sam's dad mentioned. By the way, these two can't see what people type. That's why only I am reading it. It's in the program that I use to stream this Streamlabs. So Andrew says, can't really think of another major Hollywood actor, Oscar-winning director, who went on to set up an important independent film festival. Giving back was important and might be his lasting legacy. Yeah, I think we agree to that.
Definitely.
With All Is Lost too, he seemed to embrace his old age, but that's Robert Redford old age. And he told me that the movie is shots of rum. So there you go. Yeah, but I mean, look, he was alive, but you know, it's like for me with that other guy that died that was in Superman, Gene Hackman. I didn't know Robert Redford was still alive. Like, it's not something that came to mind. He was already a thing of the past to be honored. Arguably, he was at that point by the 90s when he was getting like legacy awards from the Golden Globes. You know, I think he's really cool though, and he has great movies, and you know, it's hard to think of an actor from the 70s that I think has his mainstream appeal with all of his movies.
And again, turning up in Captain America and Avengers, you know, he is in. Is Endgame, like, is Avatar retaken the highest grossing, or is it Endgame?
Yes, yes, it has. Avatar's #1, Endgame's #2.
Yeah. So he's in the second highest grossing film of all time. Like, you'd take that.
And
like,
also, none of what
end of your career.
None of what I said about mainstream is to slight like De Niro or Nicholson or any. Like, they just have an edge to them that, I mean, Robert Redford doesn't have it, even if he's playing outlaws. So
yeah.
He just seems very earnest and honest in his performances. you know.
Yeah, I mean, if you compare it to like Paul Newman, I think of the two of them, Paul Newman had that edge, didn't he? Really, I think if you're going to go for, go for a character who's a bit tougher, a bit more, I don't know, deceptive or sinister, possibly, probably might be more likely to go for Newman. But if you want to go for like the trustworthy kind of charisma machine, then it's Redford.
Yeah.
They're obviously both very charismatic, handsome men in different ways.
Yeah. And just when I compare him to like Nicholson or De Niro, he just seems to be in a different class of film, working with a different class of director,
Yeah.
But yeah, so there we go. That is one Robert Redford. I mean, we could do another on his directing. We could do another on his acting. Yeah. But for now, thank you for all the fish, Robert Redford.
So long, and thanks for all the fish. Please, come on.
You're right.
Disgraceful.
That's it for this episode, though. We'll be back with something else. Until then, where can people find you?
You can find me at SSP Thinks Film and at the Second Cut Pod Substack, where I think my most recent posting is still my review of Spike Lee's Highest to Lowest. There'll be more coming from me in the coming week or so. So, check that out.
Hopefully you don't find me anywhere, which is why I'm the nameless voice at the moment. But if you do, I'm K-Judgmental in the various places. Put a few things up on the Substack. Our first short film review, short film called Safe, which is currently getting into one or two festivals as far as I can work out and submitting for the others.
Is Sundance one?
I don't think it will be, no, unfortunately. But we always like to support the independent guys whenever we can. Obviously, as somebody that's worked on those kind of things and come up through there. Also got reviews of Conjuring 4, Last Rites, and the new Stephen King, The Long Walk as well. Hopefully I'm going to try and get to some other stuff as well. At the very least, I'm going to go and suffer through Strangers Chapter 2 at some point.
Oh God, why would you do that to yourself?
Because I've already done the first one. I did it for TFM, so I've got to do the rest now. It says something that this is meant to come out like literally this time last year. Like the third one is meant to have been out by about half a year by now. So
yeah, this is the new X Strangers trilogy. Gosh, I completely forgot that was a thing until just now.
So did I.
Yeah. By the way, Sam's dad, thank you for talking to us, and also my mom. My dad also, he texted me. He didn't put anything in here. He said Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid pushed the limits of nudity with Catherine Ross's nightgown. Apparently, that was very edgy.
Because it is nearly nudity, but not quite.
Yep, yeah, and I mean, we're in that negotiating period between no Hays Code and do whatever you want. So, I didn't even think about that, but yeah, you can find me at Jacob Film Guy, where I'm going to review the Paul Thomas Anderson movie. So,
that comes out tomorrow, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's out.
Sorry, Friday. I keep thinking we're still on a Thursday.
It's out in the near future, and also I'll say go watch it because Paul Thomas Anderson's great.
And DiCaprio and Benicio del Toro and all that lot.
Oh, yeah. But there's someone Benicio del Toro. Oh, never mind. I'm not going into it. That's it. Thank you for listening, and goodbye.
Adios.
Goodbye.